A growing number of Republican-led states will be ending increased unemployment benefits. At least 11 states say they will be opting out of the federal program. The move would cut off $300 weekly unemployment benefits by the end of June. That aid was initially extended through early September. The news follows Friday's jobs report, which showed the U.S. economy added far fewer jobs than expected last month. But President Biden says government benefits aren't what's keeping people out of work. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News reporter Sarah Ewall-Wice. Sarah, what have the governors of these states said about why they're leaving the program?
Right. So some of these different governors have been talking about workforce shortages in their states. They talk about how the economy is opening up and they're open for business, but they cannot find workers. And so they're saying that these increased unemployment benefits are keeping folks at home and from searching for jobs, and therefore they need to end them. Many governors are talking about doing this in mid-June, some in early July. One of the governors just on Wednesday who said he was ending the program in Wyoming said it's un-American to pay American workers not to work, and that was a part of the reason. They're also obviously, as you mentioned, citing the jobs report on Friday, which was a big disappointment. There are a growing number of job postings. We saw a record number in March, an increase in April, and yet they're still unable to fill some of those jobs. So they're hoping that this serves as an incentive to get folks back into the job market.
Yeah, Sarah, it certainly has become a political argument between right and left. So what's the reality of the situation? How big of an impact do unemployment benefits actually have on labor shortages?
Well, I think if you're going to go out and ask folks about why they're not going back to work, you will find some people who say the increased benefits are a reason. But let's be very clear, that is not one of the major reasons here driving people to stay out of the workforce right now. I spoke to one restaurant owner just today who is having a hard time finding workers. And she told me that when she tries to get employees, one of the things that is still a serious concern for folks in these jobs is the health concerns because of the coronavirus. It is not gone. And so they voice those concerns when they're speaking to her. And, you know, restaurants are one of the businesses where there are a lot of openings and they're increasing openings. And so that is one problem. Another issue that we are seeing is the issue of childcare. There are a number of childcare workers who have not gone back to work. There are not the jobs to watch these children. And so parents are having trouble going back to work as well. There's also the education for school-age children. Some kids are back in classrooms, but some of them are not back in classrooms full-time. Some of them are distance learning through the end of the school year. So that is another additional layer to this challenge. I will say there have been a number of studies that have actually looked at the impact of increased unemployment benefits specifically on the workers and whether they go searching for jobs. And what those studies have actually found is that increased benefits serve as an incentive for some of these unemployed workers to work harder to find jobs. And when they don't have the unemployment benefits, that actually is what happens is they end up not working as hard to find those jobs. So that's really the exact opposite reaction to what some of these governors, as they claim, will happen when they end these benefits for workers.
Sorry, Sarah, I'm not sure I fully understood that study. It said that when there were no unemployment benefits, when there were unemployment benefits, people worked harder for a job. Why would that be?
I think it serves as an incentive. Folks, they are getting this money, but they're definitely, the pressure is on to return to the workforce. And when there aren't the jobs, they actually get, it serves as it's more disappointing, it's more of a struggle, and there's more stress involved. And that is why they're not working as hard to find those jobs. And that was a study that looked at before the pandemic, but it was looking at the range of years and what happened with increased benefits versus not having those benefits available to folks when they become unemployed and how they interact once they receive them.
Well, Sarah, what does this move mean for people who are self-employed or gig workers and are receiving pandemic unemployment assistance?
Right. So what happens is this different program for unemployment benefits for gig workers, for self-employed workers, was actually created in response to the pandemic. These are folks who were not initially able to receive traditional benefits, so they created another program. This program, when these governors end these unemployment, these federal benefits, will also end, and those workers will not have those benefits. One of the things that we have seen is a number of groups have decried the move by governors to end these programs. There are millions of people still on these programs who are self-employed, who are gig workers, who are receiving these benefits. And what happens is they'll lose them. There is some questions from these groups asking whether the Labor Department can take some kind of initiative to work around these governors, but that is really unclear at this time. So right now it looks like they will be losing out when these programs end.
And we know for so many people, these benefits have been a lifeline. I also want to ask you about consumer prices in April, because they jumped 4.2% from a year earlier. It was the fastest one-year increase since 2008, in fact. What has been driving prices, and are officials concerned with inflation as we emerge from the pandemic?
Now, there is some concerns. They are watching these prices extremely closely. There's a number of different factors at play here. When you look at the numbers just from the month of April, one of the biggest increases was the price of used cars. Something that is a problem there is that there's a supply chain shortage, and that has driven prices up in that specific sector. There are also different levels that are, as we come out of this pandemic, where prices have been down well below because they plunged last spring due to the pandemic, and now they're slowly inching upward. Other prices in terms of services have also slowly started to rise as we ease with the pandemic, but are not back at pre-pandemic levels. So those are factors at play. We saw that some food prices have also increased month to month, March and April. And when you talk to folks, you definitely do see them raising concerns about these prices when they go to the grocery market, when they go out to buy goods and services. I think people are very well aware of this after a year of serious economic anxiety. Seeing any increases makes people very nervous. When you talked about the Federal Reserve Chairman who looks at the inflation and the measurements to address that, he actually has said they do expect some inflation. They expect it to be temporary. This is not long-term. Other federal officials have also noted that they do note that there will be inflation in the coming months, but they expect that to be temporary as they have kind of bottlenecks as we ease out of this pandemic. But they are watching this very closely as we move forward, and they are saying that on a regular basis. We don't expect it to be long-term, but we are watching it and monitoring it. And they say they have the tools to address it should it become a long-term problem or an increasing problem.
Yeah, we know a lot of people struggling at every different level. All right, Sarah Ewall-Wice, thank you.
Thank you.